Style. I first want to introduce my mate here. We have Diana Santamaria, who has a master's degree in early childhood education, along with 8 years of teaching experience. As a result of her education and professional experiences, she's the author and has created the Daily Worlds series to incorporate preschool, common core objectives, diversity, playful verbiage, and developmentally appropriate learning strategies to help increase reading comprehension and overall learning. As a child who struggled with reading and social identification, the Dealey's World series is designed to promote literacy, diversity, and fun. So welcome.
Thank you. And here we have Natalie Torres-Haddad. She's an award-winning author and a TED Talk speaker. She specializes in financial literacy and empowering her Latino community. Born in El Salvador and raised in Inglewood, California, she's a first-generation college graduate with a master's, making her part of the 4% of Latinos with a master's degree. She wrote her first children's book based off her nonprofit and her grandmother's influence. Yes, you can without a Superman, si se puede sin un Superman.
Thank you. So we're going to do this as a fun style. When we were asked to do this, we wanted to incorporate why we became authors. So can you tell us, Diana, why is it you decided to write this series?
Oh, yes. So I've been educating for the past 8 years. I have a master's degree, like you mentioned, in early childhood education. So I've been in the classroom for many years, and after like maybe my 4th year in the classroom and reading various types of books, I really started analyzing the stories that the children really enjoyed. So there were some that they really liked, and then there was others that they dismissed totally. So I started paying attention to that, and then I thought to myself, oh, maybe I can write one. So that's kind of like how it all started, and then the fact that I struggled with reading, I wanted to try to create something that was captivating to the eye, but also educational, so that the kids would gravitate to it, and they would be more motivated to pick up a book.
Yes.
You know, early on versus me, like, who didn't do it till like I was in the 3rd grade.
Right. You're very engaging, and that's exactly what you wanted the students to get, right?
Exactly.
I love that. I mean, I think that's one of the things why we decide to write, right? It's not necessarily we do it because, oh, we want to get a book out there, but because we want to be reflected in what we do. To be able to be a child, to see yourself and say, oh, I look like this character, or I feel connected with their story, with their culture, with their background. I think it's really powerful. And I know that's something that made me want to write the book as well, because as a woman of color, as an immigrant, and just being a first-generation college graduate, I think that's something we need to see more representation of, and especially in the U.S. And we're part of the small percentage that has a master's degree. 4% of Latinos carry a master's degree in the U.S. So it's important to not only promote higher education, but to be able to show that creative outlet. And that's partly why I wrote my book, because I wanted to show kids that they can start their nonprofits and do what they want to do with life and be an example to their community. So I'm glad that we're sharing the stage, because it's amazing to be connected with other women, other Latinas that are thinking that way as well. I would like to ask you, because I've only read one of your books, but you have 6. From your books, do you have someone that influenced you to write? Obviously it came from a need, but was there particular characters or that someone that made you want to write this book that had influenced you?
I would say like my students. My students really influenced me because, like I said, at the time I was reading a lot of different books, and I was just like trying to see what they really liked, and so I really paid attention to each and every student to gather that information, and from there I started writing, and I was inspired to write certain stories because of specific students.
Yes.
Right. So I would say that my students are always my inspiration. For everything that I end up writing. Yeah.
Awesome.
What about yourself?
You know, my influences come from, I think, my family is number one. I had some wonderful experiences being around powerful, intelligent, and really confident women, Latinas, that really, my mom and my grandmothers were definitely that for me. And then seeing Dolores Huerta yesterday speak at the conference was also empowering, because this is an icon basically in our cultures that we looked up to. So I had a lot of strong Latina influences growing up, but I wanted to see more that looked like me. You could say I'm from El Salvador, so growing up in a predominantly Latino neighborhood, I always felt I identified with the Mexican culture. but yet when I would speak about El Salvador, I always felt kind of alone. And luckily, that's kind of a creative outlet I had, and reminded that all countries bring in beautiful stories, cultures, and we can really enrich our stories. So my influences really came from the women directly that I read about, or was, obviously brought me into this world. So my grandmother was a huge influence of paying it forward, and that's part of what my children's book was, is how one little thing can really grow into helping thousands of girls. And it was just kind of that influence that my grandma said, you can help one person, chances are they can help another, and it can grow into this huge organization that I never thought I could do. So I think my influence were really the people around me.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
I love that.
And your character, so tell us how you came up with Dealey's character, because I first saw it and I'm like, obviously she has her cute little toy down there too, so how did you come up with her the way she looks?
Well, actually, I mirrored my own image. So growing up, I was actually made fun of a lot. I stood out a lot because I wasn't what the typical Latina looked like, and so nobody thought I was Latina. If anything, they always called me Asian.
Yeah.
So I was like, why not take a character? Why not take my own image and create a character out of it? Because at the time, I had my big glasses. I got made fun of all the time about it. So I was like, hey, why not create a character with those same kind of glasses and put her in the forefront, So that's pretty much how we came up with that. And then the actual clothing that she wears was just inspired by different things that I particularly like the heart stands for love, which I feel like everything revolves around love. Right. And the yellow's for sun, and I love the sun.
Yes.
So those kind of things, and I feel like they're very powerful colors.
I love that.
So that's how I came up with that.
And it's a warm character, and it's someone that I think I can definitely relate to. So many, growing up with curly hair, growing up with brown eyes. I want to.
That was the goal.
Yeah, you want to be able to see that, right?
Yeah, because I feel like growing up, when I saw a lot of the children's books, I didn't see myself in them, and that was, it bothered me, and I didn't realize it till a little later. I'm like, I never saw any characters that look like me. So
yes, or if they did, they looked like the victim, or they were the princess that needed to be saved. So as a child, I didn't feel that way either. It was like I didn't see them being the hero of their stories, right? And that's something obviously Dealey does. She's a hero in her own story and what she's going through, right? Yeah. I love that. For me, it was very similar, actually. Coming up with, the features that people always try to identify, where are you from, or what do you look like, and then they hear you speak Spanish, and my Spanish is all over the place. The accents come out here and there, and it's kind of trying to say, well, we don't all want a particular person. Some of us have blue eyes, some of us have blonde hair, some of us have curly. How do you see yourself in these different images? I actually created my character to also have a cape. I always was brought up very, I guess you could say, untraditional in the Latina culture, but my dad, I'm the first, so my dad treated me he said, I'm going to treat you like I treat myself as a boy. So he said, you need to be the hero of every story. He's like, you don't need someone to save you. And he's like, he would tell me the same. He's like, get an education, get your home, get everything that you want to do before settling down. And I always felt like a superhero as a kid. And I felt my character needed to have that cape too, that reminder for girls, tweens particularly. That's what my book was mostly catered for them to start seeing themselves as the leaders, as the owners of businesses, as the Dolores Huertas, right? To be able to say, I can start a movement.
To be empowered.
Exactly. And the author the illustrator, that did the images, I asked her she looks somewhat similar to me, but I even said, do how you would want to picture. And she does a lot of comic graphics. So her experience in those type of illustration, I was so drawn to. She does a lot of animation. And I said, choose her to be who would you wanted to see as growing up. And she's Mexican-American and from San Diego, actually. And she created this really cool, cute brown girl that I felt was so all over the place that anyone can say I can identify, whether you're not Latino or not. So it's important to have those characters, right? So did you come across any challenges writing a book? Maybe your first one or even the first 3 that you decided to do?
I would say that a challenge would be going through the editing process, right? Because you write a story and it's not perfect right away. You have to keep developing it. And so sometimes you get a little too close to it and it's hard for you to see the things that need to be changed, right? So it's also great to have other people look through it, and that way you're not just putting out something that you know, is not good enough. You want to, if you're going to do something, I always believe you should do it right.
Yes.
So it's really important that you have the right people editing and, you know, seeing your work and giving you the proper criticism that you need to develop it into before you put it out.
Yes.
So I feel like initially that was a little bit of a challenge, especially with my books. They all rhyme, and in the beginning I didn't realize that it should be perfect rhymes, right?
That's a hard thing to do.
Perfect rhyme, right? And that was tough. That was really tough for me. So my cousin actually, she read over my book. She's like, it's not a perfect rhyme. And I was like, what? I was like, wait. And then I reread it and I was like, wow, you're right. So I had to sit back and then just start like rewriting.
Right.
And a lot of it takes rewrite.
Exactly.
You know, it's not a 1, 2, 3 thing.
No.
Right? You can come up with the idea, that's great. But then you have to like, it takes a while to, you know, perfect it.
I think that's the most of the time that you're spent is going back and redoing it, getting some input, right?
Yeah.
Getting the side notes that you are like, oh, I thought I put that in there and I didn't, or I should take it out.
Oh my goodness, can I tell you something that's crazy? So after like developing, let's say, for example, I came up with 3 because I wanted to be seen as a series. So I did 3 books and I came out with them at the same time, right? Because
awesome.
I independently published them. So when I was ready to launch it, and I realized that I missed a period on like one of the sentences.
And of course, as authors or writers, we drive ourselves crazy for that.
Yeah,
yes,
but
we're our
like
worst critics.
like a period, that's insane, right? That's the thing, like everybody knows to punctuate, right?
Yes.
It wasn't like it was like a comma somewhere, or it was a period at the end of a sentence.
Right.
I was so upset with myself, and those are little things that that's what I'm saying is like, sometimes when you're a little too close to it, you can miss those simple things.
Right, or you get so sick at looking at it over and over. For me, it took about a couple years. I mean, it was a challenge, and I actually wrote my first book, which on financial literacy, so there's a lot of math, worksheets, and for me, I was more interested in the content of the math side, so I wasn't so worried about the grammar that comes with it, right? You're not really thinking about that type of audience. For me, I was like, it's high school and college students, you know, they'll understand. So my challenge was a lot difficult with the children's book.
Right.
And then personally, for me, I wrote it based off of my story. After losing my grandmother with cancer, this is part of kind of what came up with the idea. I was going through a really hard time, obviously, dealing with that and depression that comes along with it. And after attending my 4th funeral in like less than 2 months, it was a very difficult time. And I had already graduated from college, so all of a sudden I found myself dealing with something I'd never dealt with before. But luckily, being able to reach out to some of my friends, I came up with this idea and said, hey, you know, I was cleaning out my closet because that was the only way I can get some kind of closure or control in my life. And my closet was a mess, and I came across old dresses from formals and my prom dress. And I thought, if I can find a girl that needs a dress, and I'm pretty sure some of my sorority sisters or friends have bridesmaid dresses, I called a few friends, had this idea, and our goal was to help 5 girls. We helped 45 girls in the first event. That was going to be a one-time thing. And then we continued to do it, which we helped over 1,000 girls in Los Angeles County. They got everything from free jewelry, makeup, workshops on how to go to college, how to pay for college.
Right.
So it was this huge nonprofit that became what it became for many years. And so it was actually really difficult writing that story because I had to talk about very difficult parts, but also for a tween to understand. And I think that was a huge challenge because I wanted to be authentic and honest in what I went through, but I wanted a